Crash Issue 13 was the February 1985 issue. The cover may have been inspired by the game Gift from the Gods, reviewed in this issue. Let's see what other games were highly rated this time. In 10th place we have Fahrenheit 3000, published by Softstone and written by Tim Williams and Chris Jones. This was later re-released by Firebird. This is a platform game in which you have to explore and shut down a reactor before it melts down. Crash described this as having a difficult Jet Set Willy style. They said if you found Jet Set Willy too easy, boring and unchallenging, you'll most probably enjoy this game. They noted that it relies heavily on timing jumps to perfection, and found the rebound effect when you bounce off of a platform to be novel. They found the colouring of the graphics to be odd, but the animation superb. They gave this game a score of 81%. My first impressions were that this was a somewhat ugly Manic Miner variant, but it doesn't have the charm of that game. The game may have been better if it had eased you in, instead it starts difficult, with well-timed and pixel-perfect jumps needed to get anywhere. Your character has a surprisingly large jump, but the game's just not fun enough to want to come back too often. In 9th place is Blockbusters, published by Maxon Software, and also written by Tim Williams and Chris Jones. This is a version of the British TV quiz show Blockbusters. Back in issue 8, Crash reviewed the game Blockbuster by CompuSound. However, soon after this, CompuSound were forced to withdraw their version from sale, as it hadn't been officially licensed. This is the official version. Crash described this as one of the most fun and addictive educational games on the market. They liked the precise, bold and clear screen layout, and found it well worth the money, with good family entertainment value. They gave this 82%. It's less ugly than CompuSound's version, but this is only a two-player game, so not a great deal of fun for the lone player. The way in which the question appears slowly, and both players have a chance to buzz in, is good. Although the game has 9 levels, rather than controlling the difficulty of the questions, this controls the time you have to answer them. Given that the questions are not difficult, this relies more on your typing speed. May be fun for younger children, or if you're a big fan of the TV show. In 8th place is Gift from the Gods, published by Ocean and written by Denton Designs, an offshoot of the by now defunct Imagine Software. This is a multi-screen arcade adventure based on Greek mythology, in which you take the role of Orestes. You have to escape a labyrinth by finding 16 Euclidean shapes and taking them to the Guardian's chamber. Crash compared this to The Alchemist from issue 2, although found this a more detailed and complex game. They described it as colourful with a marvellous presentation, although felt that £9.95 was a very steep price to pay for the game. They gave this an overall score of 84%. I found this graphically very pleasing. All screens are colourful, but being designed carefully to avoid colour clash. I felt this could have been a good game, but after a while the rooms will get a bit samey, and there's not really enough happening to make this the most compelling game. There are 2 games in joint 6th place. The first is Hunchback 2, published by Ocean and written by Paul Owens, Mike Webb and David Thorpe. This is a follow-up to the original Hunchback game, not rated at all highly in issue 2. Subtitled Quasimodo's Revenge, in this game you once again take the role of Quasimodo, and have to collect bells through a series of 7 screens to rescue Esmeralda. Crash felt that this game more than surpassed the original Hunchback. Although tougher than that game, they found it very playable and addictive, with a varying set of screens. Although one reviewer felt that there should be a wider range of skill levels, another reckoned that the increasing difficulty would give the game a pretty long life in terms of appeal. They scored this at 85%. The animation is smooth and precise timing is required to avoid all of the arrows heading in your direction. This makes it quite a challenging game. Whilst it is certainly better than the original Hunchback and would be fun for a few goes, it's probably not a game I'll return to often. Next in 6th place is Finders Keepers, released by Mastertronic and written by David Jones and Ray Owen. In this game you play Magic Knight and are transported by a king to Spriteland and have to find a present for the king's daughter, Princess Germantrude. Crash liked the brightly coloured, imaginative and fully animated characters, finding this much better than the usual from Mastertronic. They found the mechanic of combining 2 objects to make a third to be pleasing and satisfying, but their key highlight was the value for money, with this £1.99 game being one that could easily sell for £5.95. They gave it 99% for value for money and an overall score of 85%. This was the first in the Magic Knight series of games, and although Finders Keepers doesn't have the polish and puzzling challenge of the later games in the series, it is certainly a reasonable start. This game has more arcade aspects than the later games, each room having a series of enemies to avoid and jump over, as well as platforms to get between. It is somewhat challenging, but easier than Fahrenheit 3000 and Hunchback 2. Definitely worth a go. In 5th place is Match Day from Ocean, written by John Rittman, Chris Clark and Guy Stevens. This is a football or soccer game in which you can play against the computer or another player. Crash found this game better than the Commodore game International Soccer, and described it as by far the best football game about. They described the graphics as being of a nice size, or they found that the players run in a robotic-like manner, but didn't find that spoiled the character of the game. They liked the attention to detail, and the configuration options available for player and pitch colours. They gave this as a score of 86%. This is perhaps the first decent football game on the spectrum. Although smooth and quite fun to play, the action just feels a little sluggish by today's standards. There's very little point playing this today. The sequel Matchday 2 improved on this, so it'd be the one to choose if playing a football simulation on the spectrum. In fourth place we have another helicopter game written by Richard Wilcox, author of Blue Thunder from issue 3. This is Airwolf, published by Elite. Airwolf is based on the TV series of the same name. You fly attack helicopter Airwolf and have to rescue 5 scientists being held hostage in a base beneath the Arizona desert. Crash felt that Airwolf was a game that you would either be terribly addicted to or switch it off, just because it's so hard to get into. They found the graphics to be neat and futuristic, with the detail being an asset to the game. They described the pace as violent and furiously fast, but all of the reviewers found it incredibly difficult. However, they found it addictive enough to give it 90% and a Crash smash. It looks like it should be a good game, but why did it have to start so hard? Graphically very impressive, and the helicopter itself isn't too bad to control, but it's just the sheer difficulty from the offset of the obstacles that you have to get past that makes it frustrating. Whilst one of the better helicopter games available for the Spectrum, it doesn't do itself any favours by being this hard. In third place we have Buggy Blast, written by Paul Hibbard and David Lowe and published by Firebird. This is a 3D space shooter in which you fly your craft down a corridor on the planet Endra, aiming to kill 20 Lurgons. Crash found this game to be highly polished in 3D graphic detail. The enemies are all drawn solidly and smoothly and get larger as they move towards you. They like the launch sequence graphics and describe the sounds incredibly good for the Spectrum's one-channel sound chip. Although more expensive for a Firebird title, at £5.95 they found this well worth the money, the only criticism being the lack of a Kempston joystick option. They gave this 91% and a Crash smash. An impressive looking start screen makes the actual game graphics look slightly disappointing when you start playing it. There are some similarities here to Blade Alley from issue 5, although the variety of enemies give this more interest. It's pretty good fun to play, and I'd say worth a few goes, especially if you're into shooters. In second place we have Technician Ted, published by Houston Consultants and written by Steve Marsden and David Cook. This is a platform-based arcade adventure in which you take the role of Ted. You explore a silicon chip factory, collecting chips whilst avoiding the numerous hazards. Crash compared this to Manic Miner, although they found it larger and with more depth to the game. They liked the way in which completing some tasks affected other screens in the game. They felt that the graphics surpassed those in Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy, enjoyed the progressive difficulty, describing it as addictive, delightful to play, and a definitive must. They gave this a whopping 96% and a Crash smash. I'm surprised that this got such a high rating. It's not a bad little platformer in the style of Jet Set Willy, but for it to score more than Jet Set Willy just feels wrong. The animation of your character is smooth and the graphics are reasonable. It's certainly a worthy platform game, but personally just doesn't enthrall me. In first place we have Doomdark's Revenge, by Mike Singleton and published by Beyond. This is the follow-up to The Lords of Midnight, reviewed in issue 7, and like that game is a strategy-based adventure in a fantasy setting. Crash found that Doomdark's Revenge improved on its predecessor in all the right ways, with a more difficult set of tasks and a more sophisticated plot. They liked the varying personalities of the leaders of each of the 5 races you encounter, and regarded this overall as excellent and a classic. This is a strange anomaly in that it's the only game to have reached top marks in every category in which it was reviewed, giving it the equivalent of a 100% rating. Again, like its predecessor Lords of Midnight, the brief time I get to spend with this game that I play for each of these videos mean that I don't really get to scratch the surface of the more complex games, so this time I'll let the Crash review and the score speak for itself. Beyond took Lords of Midnight and expanded on it, whilst keeping much of the core game mechanic the same. This was supposed to be the second in a trilogy, but sadly the third, The Eye of the Moon, was never completed. Just one special mention in this issue. That goes to Ghostbusters, released by Activision and written by David Crane. Ghostbusters was based on the hit film released in 1984. This is a mix of strategy and arcade, with you running a Ghostbusters franchise tackling the issue of ghosts in your city. Crash did not consider this game at all favourably, finding that it lacked distinctly in content. They described it as generally unexciting, but the tasks being rather uninspiring. They felt that it would not have any real lasting appeal, and £9.95 was a total rip-off. They gave this 60%. Although this game was not critically acclaimed by the magazines reviewing it, it was a game that I played many times. The Spectrum version did not have the music or the graphical smoothness of the Commodore 64 version, yet I returned to it often. The speech on the Spectrum was awful, the graphics were nothing special, but that didn't seem to matter. Not one I'd necessarily recommend you play if you didn't back in the day, but a game that meant a lot to me. If you have enjoyed this, please like and subscribe to see more videos about retro games from Norlogic Retro.